The pencil moved by itself. I swear, no one touched it. It slid across the paper, pointing to yes, and the air in the room grew so cold I could see my breath.
It started as a joke. My friends and I were bored one Friday night. We were at Sam's house, flipping through scary videos online, when Jake brought up the Charlie challenge. You guys heard of it? Jake asked, smirking. It's like a cheap Ouija board. You ask these Charlie Jude questions, and the pencils move to answer. I laughed. That's dumb. It's just gravity or people blowing on the pencils.
Sam leaned back in his chair. Let's try it. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words.
We grabbed a sheet of paper and drew a cross on it, labeling the quadrants. Yes and no. Then we balanced two pencils on top of each other, forming a cross. It felt stupid, like a kid's game, but there was a nervous energy in the room. Jake was the first to speak. Charlie, are you here?
Nothing happened.
Sam laughed, leaning closer to the pencils. See, it's fake.
But then the top pencil twitched.
Did you see that? Jake whispered. I shook my head. You bumped a table.
No one moved, Sam said, his voice quieter now.
Jake grinned nervously and asked another question. Charlie, will you talk to us?
The pencil didn't move right away. We all stared at it, holding our breath. Then, slowly, it slid toward yes. The room went dead silent.
We started asking more questions, each one getting bolder. Charlie, how did you die? Sam asked, his voice shaking.
The pencil didn't move. For a second, I thought the whole thing was over. Then Jake whispered, Charlie, are you angry? The pencil shot toward yes, so fast that it fell off the paper. Okay, that's it. I'm done, I said, standing up.
Jake laughed nervously. Don't be a baby, it's just a game. But the air in the room felt heavy now, like something was pressing down on us. Sam reached for the paper to put it away, but Jake stopped him. We have to end it properly, Jake said. That's the rule, right? You have to say goodbye, or the spirit stays. Fine, Sam said, rolling his eyes. Charlie, can we say goodbye?
The pencil didn't move.
Charlie, can we say goodbye? Jake repeated, his voice cracking. Nothing. Why isn't it moving? I asked, my throat dry.
I don't know, Jake said. Maybe we... Before he could finish, there was a loud bang from upstairs. We all froze. Sam's parents weren't home, and we were the only ones in the house.
What was that? Jake whispered.
Probably just the pipes, Sam said, but he didn't sound convinced.
Another bang echoed, louder this time. It sounded like something was being thrown across the floor. Sam grabbed a flashlight, and we crept up the stairs together. The hallway was dark, and the sound was coming from his bedroom. Sam pushed the door open slowly. The room was trashed. Books and clothes were scattered everywhere. The lamp was knocked over, and his closet door was wide open. No way, Sam whispered. Did your cat do this? I asked, my voice shaking.
I don't have a cat, Sam said. That's when we heard it, a faint whisper. It sounded like someone saying our names, one by one.
Jake, Sam, Ethan. I grabbed Sam's arm. Let's get out of here. Jake shook his head. We can't leave without ending it. We have to finish the game.
Are you serious? I snapped.
Jake ignored me and ran back downstairs. We followed him. Too scared to be alone, he grabbed the paper and set the pencils back up. Charlie, can we say goodbye? Jake asked, his voice trembling.
The pencil moved, but instead of pointing to yes, it slowly slid toward no.
The lights flickered, and the temperature in the room dropped. I swear I could hear faint laughter, like someone was standing right behind me. I'm done, I shouted, knocking the pencils off the table. As soon as I did, the front door slammed shut, even though no one was near it. We ran out of the house without looking back. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pencil moving on its own. I heard the whispering, the laughter. The next morning, Sam called me. Something's wrong, he said, his voice shaking. I woke up, and the paper was in my room. The pencils were balanced, like we never stopped. For days, strange things kept happening. Doors would slam, lights would flicker. I'd hear footsteps in my house when no one else was home. The worst was the dream. I saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed, tall and thin, with glowing red eyes. It didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me. When I woke up, the words Charlie was scratched into my bedroom wall. We tried everything to stop it burning the paper, throwing the pencils away, but nothing worked. Whatever we'd let in wasn't leaving. And now, every night, I hear it. The whisper, Charlie, Charlie, are you here? The whisper didn't stop. Every night, it grew louder. At first, it stayed faint, like a breeze in the distance, just enough to keep me awake.
but after a few days, I started hearing it during the day too, at school, in the shower, while I was walking home.
Sometimes it was just my name, other times it was the same eerie chant we had started. Charlie, Charlie, are you here?
I told Jake and Sam. Sam wouldn't even talk about it anymore. He just shook his head and said, "Don't say his name. Don't even think about it." Jake, though, tried to laugh it off. "It's just your mind messing with you," he said. We psyched ourselves out.
But even Jake wasn't convincing. His hands shook when he talked, and there were bags under his eyes. I knew he wasn't sleeping either. A week after we played the game, Sam called me in the middle of the night. I almost didn't answer. I was terrified of what I might hear on the other end of the line, but something in me said I had to.
"Hello."
There was no answer at first, just breathing. Then Sam's voice came through, hoarse and panicked. "He's in my room."
What? I sat up so fast I almost fell out of bed.
I woke up, and he was there, at the end of my bed. He's just standing there. "Sam, get out of the house," I yelled.
"I can't move," he whispered. "He's looking at me."
The call cut off. I called Jake and begged him to go with me to Sam's house. It was after midnight, and neither of us had a car, so we ran the whole way there. The house was dark when we arrived. The windows were shut, and the door was locked. We pounded on it, yelling Sam's name, but there was no answer.
Finally, Jake shoved his shoulder against the door until it splintered open. The house was freezing inside. It felt empty, but something about the silence made my stomach churn.
We found Sam in his room, curled up on the floor in the corner. His eyes were wide open, staring at nothing.
"Sam," I shook him, but he didn't respond.
Jake leaned down and grabbed his shoulder. "Jude, snap out of it."
That's when Sam whispered, "He's still here."
I looked around, my heart pounding. The room was empty, or at least it looked that way, but the air felt wrong, like something was watching us. Then the closet door creaked open. Jake grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the room. "We need to leave now." I didn't argue. Sam was muttering under his breath as we dragged him to the living room, but I couldn't make out what he was saying.
Before we could reach the front door, the lights started flickering. The shadows on the walls stretched, moving in ways they shouldn't. And then we heard it, a low, guttural voice.
"You called me." Jake froze. "Did you hear that? Let's just go," I shouted, pulling him toward the door. But before we could step outside, the door slammed shut in our faces.
The next few minutes were a blur. The windows shattered. The lights exploded. The deafening screech filled the air, like metal being torn apart. Through it all, I could hear the voice whispering, laughing, taunting. Sam suddenly snapped out of his daze and screamed, "Say goodbye. Say IT now."
Jake and I scrambled to find anything that could work. I grabbed a piece of paper off the counter and drew the cross as fast as I could. Jake found 2 pens and balanced them shakily on top of each other. "Charlie, Charlie, can we say goodbye?" Jake yelled. The pens didn't move.
The voice laughed again, louder this time. "No."
The air in the room felt like it was being sucked out. I dropped to my knees, gasping for breath. Sam was clutching his head, rocking back and forth, repeating the word goodbye over and over again.
And then, just when I thought I was going to pass out, everything stopped.
The air returned. The room went silent. The pens fell to the floor.
For a moment, none of us moved. We just sat there, too afraid to speak.
Finally, Sam whispered, "Is it over?"
"I don't know," Jake said, his voice shaking.
It wasn't over. The whispers still come. Late at night when I'm alone. They're faint, but they're there. Sam stopped talking to us after that night. He moved out of town, changed his number. Jake and I tried to forget about it, but we don't hang out anymore. Sometimes I see him around, and we exchange a look of silent agreement to never bring it up again.
But I know we're both still haunted.
The other night, I found 2 pencils on my desk, balanced perfectly on top of each other. I didn't put them there.
I threw them away, but it doesn't matter. The game doesn't end. Charlie never leaves. I wish I could say that throwing the pencils away helped, but it didn't. If anything, things got worse after that.
It started small, like shadows moving in the corners of my eyes or faint knocks at the walls late at night. I convinced myself it was just my imagination, but then, 3 nights after I found those pencils, I woke up to the sound of scratching. At first, I thought it was coming from outside my bedroom window, but as I lay there, frozen, I realized it wasn't outside at all. It was coming from inside my closet. I didn't want to move. My heart was racing, and I felt like if I stayed completely still, maybe it would stop. but the scratching didn't stop, it got louder. Finally, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it as I pointed the light toward the closet door. The scratching stopped.
But then the door creaked open.
There was nothing inside, just clothes and boxes, exactly how I'd left it. But the air coming from the closet was freezing cold, and I swear I could hear faint breathing, like someone was standing just out of sight. I slammed the door shut and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I called Jake. He sounded just as bad as I felt, exhausted, jittery, like he hadn't slept in days. It's still happening, isn't it? I asked.
Yeah, he admitted, last night. I heard my name. It wasn't a dream. Someone whispered it right in my ear.
We need to do something, I said. This isn't going away. Jake was quiet for a long time before he finally said, I found a guy. He's like a priest, but not really. He deals with stuff like this.
I didn't know what he meant, but I didn't care. Let's meet him. We met the man at a small church on the edge of town. He looked older, with tired eyes and a face that seemed to carry the weight of too many stories like ours.
Jake explained everything. The game, the pencils, the voices. The man listened without interrupting, his expression grim. That night, Jake and I returned to Sam's house. It had been abandoned since his family moved away, and stepping inside felt like walking into a tomb. The air was thick, the kind of silence that presses on your ears.
We set up the paper and pencils again, just like we had the first time. My hands shook as I balanced the pencils, terrified they would move before we even started. The man had told us to remain calm, to show no fear. You need to assert control. He'd said, it's a power game.
Easier said than done. Jake looked at me, his face pale. Are you ready?
I nodded, though I felt like I was about to throw up.
Jake took a deep breath and said, Charlie, can we say goodbye? The pencils didn't move. Charlie, can we say goodbye? Jake repeated, louder this time. The top pencil twitched, spinning slowly. It pointed to no. The air grew colder, and I felt something behind me, a presence. Jake grabbed my arm. Stay calm.
I tried, but the whispering started again. My name, Jake's name. It was all around us, echoing in the empty house.
I slammed my fist on the table. We're done. Charlie, Harley, we're ending this. The whispering stopped. The pencils spun violently, and then everything went quiet. For a moment, I thought it was over, but then the table flipped, the paper flying across the room, the front door slammed shut, and the lights in the house flickered, casting long, twisting shadows on the walls.
And then we heard it, the laugh, low, guttural, and so close it felt like it was coming from inside my own head.
Jake grabbed the paper and yelled, Charlie, can we say goodbye?
The pencil moved, slowly, shakily toward yes.
The house went still. The lights stopped flickering. The air felt warm again. Jake and I didn't wait to see if anything else would happen. We ran out of the house and didn't look back. I wish I could say that was the end of it. For weeks after, things were quiet, no whispers, no shadows. I thought we'd won. But last night, I woke up to find two pencils on my bedside table, balanced perfectly in a cross.
And a voice in the dark said, you can't say goodbye. I stared at the pencils. My breath caught in my throat. My body froze. Unable to move or scream, the voice came again, soft but closer this time.
You can't say goodbye. I bolted out of bed and turned on every light in my room. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. The pencils were still there, perfectly balanced, like a sick reminder that this wasn't over. I grabbed them and snapped them in half, tossing the pieces across the room. But as I stood there, catching my breath, I heard the faintest sound, a laugh. It wasn't just in my head this time, it was real, echoing from somewhere in the house. On the kitchen table was the paper, the same one we used during the game. The lines were drawn neatly, and the words yes and no were written exactly as before.
And in the center were two pencils, perfectly balanced.
We went back to the church, desperate for help. The man we'd spoken to before listened patiently as we told him everything. When we finished, he leaned forward, his expression grim.
This spirit is tied to you now, he said. It's not just about the game anymore. It's feeding on your fear, your doubt. The more attention you give it, the stronger it becomes.
So what do we do? I asked. He sighed. You need to cut it off completely. Destroy everything tied to it, the pencils, the paper, anything that connects you to it. And then you have to take back control of your lives. If it can't scare you, it can't stay. Jake and I nodded, though deep down, I wasn't sure we could do it.
That night, I burned the paper in the backyard. I tossed the broken pencils into the fire and watched until nothing was left but ash.
For a few days, it felt like it worked. No whispers, no shadows. I started to believe the nightmare was finally over.
But then, one night, I woke up to the sound of scratching again.
This time, it wasn't coming from the closet. It was coming from under my bed.
I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. It's not real. I whispered to myself, it's not real.
The scratching stopped.
But then, I heard the whisper.
Why did you burn it?
My blood ran cold. Something shifted under the bed, a shadow, darker than the rest, and then I saw it.
2 pencils, perfectly balanced, sliding out from beneath the bed. I screamed and ran out of the room, not stopping until I was outside in the freezing night air. I called Jake, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. He answered on the first ring.
Did it come back? He asked, his voice flat.
Yes, I whispered. What do we do now? Jake was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, it doesn't matter what we do. It's never leaving.
That was 3 days ago.
Since then, I've started hearing the whispers again. They follow me everywhere, at school, at home, even when I'm with other people. Sometimes I catch glimpses of something in the mirror, a shadow that doesn't belong. And every night, no matter how many times I throw them away, the pencils return.
I'm writing this now because I don't know how much longer I can take it.
The whispers are getting louder. The shadows are getting closer.
And tonight, I found a message scratched into my wall.
You called me. I'm starting to think Jake was right. It's never leaving. It's part of me now.
And I think it's waiting for something.